Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into something pretty fascinating and I think incredibly relevant, blockchain technology and how it could change how the US federal government handles, well, its finances.
Oh, yeah. It's a really interesting area, especially with everything that's been going on.
Exactly right. Our guide for this deep dive is an article by Vicente, MD, RBE. It's called Transforming Federal Financial Management Through Blockchain Technology, published February 10th, 2025. He goes right to the heart of it all, starting with those recent investigations into spending at USAE. I mean, these are some serious problems, and they go way beyond just USA, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
These issues point to systemic problems across, well, basically the whole federal government. It's like Vicente is saying, hey, if it's happening here, it's probably happening in a lot of other places too.
Hmm.
And that's where blockchain comes in.
Okay, so let's break down these systemic issues. One of the biggest is the lack of real-time fund tracking. We're talking about situations where it takes weeks or even months to verify how these funds are being used.
It's kind of wild when you think about it. I mean, we can track packages across the globe in real time, but we're still struggling to follow the flow of taxpayer dollars. And that lack of transparency, well, it definitely breeds inefficiency, and to be honest, it just erodes public trust.
And it's not just about tracking. Vicente also brings up these complex intermediary chains. Money flows through so many different organizations. I mean, it gets incredibly difficult to maintain oversight. What does this mean for accountability?
Honestly. It's kind of a recipe for disaster. I mean, every extra link in the chain is just another opportunity for misallocation, mistakes, or even worse, fraud. It's like a game of telephone, remember that, where the original message gets distorted with every whisper. By the time the funds reach their destination, well, who knows what's happened along the way.
Yeah, Vicente really paints a bleak picture, but then he throws us a lifeline, blockchain. He seems really optimistic about how it could solve these problems. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Well, blockchain offers something totally different from traditional systems. It's like switching from keeping records by hand to a digital system that can't be tampered with and that anyone can see. Imagine a system where every transaction, every dollar spent is recorded permanently and can't be changed.
That's the immutable ledger, right?
Yeah, exactly. That immutability combined with transparency, the ability for anyone to see where the money is going, that could be a game changer for accountability. And that's just the start.
Okay, so let's get into some specifics. Vicente talks about using smart contracts to automate fund disbursement. Can you give me an example? Like, how would that work?
Sure. Imagine USAI is sending aid to an area after a natural disaster. Now, instead of just transferring funds and hoping for the best, they could use a smart contract to automatically release those funds only when certain conditions are met. Like, the contract could verify that important supplies, things like food and medicine, have actually arrived where they're supposed to before any money is released.
So you're saying no more relying on intermediaries who might not be trustworthy and no more wondering if the money is actually being used for what it was intended for. That's a really powerful idea.
And that's just one example. Smart contracts could completely change all sorts of government processes. We're talking about things like streamlining procurement, enforcing regulatory compliance, even distributing benefits more efficiently. The possibilities are, well, almost endless.
Wow, okay. So we've got transparent tracking, automated disbursement. What else?
Well, another benefit of blockchain is real-time auditing and oversight. No more waiting months for audits to find problems. Agencies, watchdogs, even the public could have access to real-time spending data. Think about it like this. It's like watching a live stream of where every dollar is going.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could really rebuild trust in government, but what about preventing fraud? Like actually stopping it from happening.
That's where the strong security of blockchain really shines. Every transaction is verified by lots of nodes on a network, so it's basically impossible to tamper with records. It's like having 1,000 people constantly checking every transaction. If someone tries to sneak in a suspicious expense, the system would flag it immediately.
So you're saying that $70,000 musical in Ireland wouldn't have had a chance?
Not even a little bit. This level of transparency and security makes blockchain a really powerful tool in the fight against fraud and corruption.
Vicente even talks about using something called tokenization for direct aid distribution. Can you break that down for me? What does that mean?
Well, instead of relying on those middlemen, who may or may not be trustworthy, aid could go directly to the people who need it, using digital tokens tied to the US dollar. Imagine a world where every dollar for aid actually reaches the people who need it most.
That could really change how efficient and effective aid programs are.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes hand in hand with the concept of decentralized identity management.
Hmm.
If you can securely store and verify identities on the blockchain, then you know the aid is going to the right people. Plus, it prevents fraud and duplication. Imagine what could happen if we use this for all government assistance programs.
We're talking about a whole new level of accuracy and accountability. Vicente really makes a strong case for how blockchain could transform USAID. But he doesn't stop there, does he? He sees this technology impacting the entire federal government.
That's right. He sees blockchain as the key to unlocking a more efficient, transparent, and accountable government for everyone.
So last time we were talking about how blockchain could totally change things at USI, but Vincent Vicente sees even bigger possibilities, right? Like using blockchain to revolutionize the entire Treasury Department and the Office of Management and Budget. That's a big deal. I mean, where do we even start with something like that?
Well, first, we got to admit that making this kind of change across the whole federal government, it won't be easy. Vicente himself calls it what do you say, a leap of faith for government leaders. This isn't just about using new tech, it's about changing how things are done, like fundamentally.
So where would you start? If you could just like snap your fingers and make it happen.
Vicente suggests starting slow, with pilot programs and proof of concept initiatives. You can't just flip a switch and change everything at once. It's more about proving that the tech works and, gathering some data, building confidence before you go big.
So like dipping your toes in the water before you jump in the pool.
Exactly. Start with a few specific projects, show that blockchain works in government, and then use those wins to get people excited about using it everywhere.
That makes sense. But we can't forget about all the rules and stuff. Using blockchain in the government would mean a whole new set of regulations and guidelines, right?
Oh, absolutely. The government needs to create clear rules to make sure that using blockchain doesn't, cause any problems with compliance or security. We don't want to fix one problem and create a bunch more, right? And that's where working together, like between agencies, is really important.
You're talking about bringing different agencies together, right? Like tech people, maybe even those watchdog groups.
Right. It's all about building a solid foundation for blockchain in government. And speaking of foundations, Vicente also talks about how important public-private partnerships are.
Ah, so it's not just the government doing this all alone.
No way. Working with blockchain startups and big tech companies, that could really speed things up. They know their stuff. They're agile, and they can help the government adapt faster.
It's like combining the best of both worlds, right? You have the government with its stability and resources, and then you have the private sector, which is all about innovation and speed.
Right. And we can't forget about the people involved. Education and training are super important. We can't just throw new tech at people and expect them to know what to do with it, right? We got to train government people about blockchain, what it can do, and how they can use it to solve real problems.
It's about helping people embrace change, not forcing it on them, right?
Absolutely. So we've talked about those pilot programs, making new rules, those public-private partnerships, and teaching people how to use blockchain. That's a pretty good plan for USA, right?
Yeah, but Vicente doesn't stop there. He's thinking even bigger.
You got it. He imagines blockchain completely changing the way the Treasury Department and the OMB do their jobs.
Okay, so let's dig into that. Let's start with the Treasury. How could blockchain change things there?
Well, imagine this. Every payment the government makes is checked in real time. Like, is this payment allowed? Does it fit the budget? No more waiting weeks or months to make sure everything adds up.
So it all happens instantly, right? Like automatically.
Yeah, that's the idea. We're talking about changing how the whole government does its accounting. Think about making sure everything balances at the end of the month, for example. Smart contracts could do that automatically, maybe even cutting down the time it takes from days to just a few hours.
Man, I wish my budget worked that fast. But it's not just about speed, is it? Blockchain could help control spending better too, right?
You bet. We could set up automatic controls that keep agencies from spending more than they're supposed to. It's like having a built-in safeguard against blowing the budget.
Okay, so what about a blockchain-based system for actually making payments? What would that look like?
Imagine being able to see where every government payment goes, from start to finish. You could track it as it leaves the Treasury, goes through any banks, and finally reaches the right person. No more guessing games, no more wondering where the money went.
That's kind of amazing. So we've talked about the Treasury. Now what about the OMB? How could blockchain change how they handle the budget? I feel like this is where things get really interesting.
Absolutely. Imagine the OMB seeing how every agency is spending their money, like live, not months later when it's too late to make changes. It'd be like having a dashboard showing you all the government spending so you can step in and make decisions right away.
That's a super powerful tool. It could help the government stay on track and make smarter choices. And then there's the idea of using smart contracts to control spending based on what Congress approves, right?
Yeah. Smart contracts could make sure agencies don't spend more than Congress allows.
It's about making sure the government is responsible and accountable at every level.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a thought. What if you could connect spending to how well a program is actually working?
Now you're thinking like Vicente. That's the dream, right?
Yeah.
Being able to see how effective programs are in real time and then using that info to decide where the money goes. It's about making sure that every dollar the taxpayers give is being used well.
So blockchain could actually help the government get more for its money, right? Like get better results.
Exactly. Sure, investing in blockchain might seem like a lot upfront, but the benefits, like less fraud, better oversight, and more efficiency, those are worth way more than the cost.
It's like investing in a better future for everyone.
I like that. And Vicente believes we need to act now. If government agencies take advantage of this chance, they could create a whole new system of financial integrity and accountability.
Okay, I'm on board. This tech has the power to revolutionize how the government manages its money. But here's the big question. Is the government actually ready for such a huge change?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
One we'll explore in the last part of our deep dive. Stay with us.
Okay, so we've been talking about Vincent Ray Vicente's vision for how blockchain could change, well, everything. From U.S. side to the Treasury, even the OMB.
It's a big vision, yeah. But we've also seen how this tech could fix some really tough problems in government.
Right. More transparency, automatic accountability, real-time tracking, maybe even a system to prevent, another $70,000 musical.
We've talked about a lot, but at the end of the last part, we had a big question. Is the government really ready for this kind of change? I mean, it's a big one.
Yeah, it's a valid question. We've talked about needing pilot programs, new rules, public-private partnerships, and education. That's a lot to handle.
It is, and Vicente knows it's tough. He even calls it a leap of faith for government leaders.
What do you think he means by that?
Well, think about it. We're talking about changing systems that have been around for decades. I mean, maybe even centuries in some cases. The government is huge. It doesn't change quickly.
And there's the people, too. Change can be scary, especially when it involves technology.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's going to be pushback. Some people won't believe it'll work. And it'll take time for everyone to learn how to use it.
So what needs to happen for this to actually work? For Vicente's vision to become reality?
Vicente says it's all about leadership. Leaders who are willing to try new things, who are ready to work together, who believe that the good outweighs the bad.
And it's not just about saving money, right? There's more to it than that.
Definitely. It's about earning back trust in the government. It's about making sure taxpayer money is used the right way. It's about building a system that works better, that's more accountable.
It's about making a government that works better for everyone.
Exactly. And, yeah, spending money to get blockchain up and running might seem like a lot, but think of the long-term benefits. Less fraud, better oversight, more efficiency, those are priceless.
So it's not just about changing the tech, it's about changing the whole culture, right? How the government thinks and works.
You got it. It's about thinking differently, putting transparency first, being accountable, and making decisions based on data, not just, gut feelings.
And Vicente thinks now is the time to make that change.
He does. And you know what? I agree with him. We have the tech.
Yeah.
We know the benefits. The real question is, will our leaders take the leap?
So that brings us to the end of our deep dive into blockchain and how it could totally change the way the U.S. government handles its finances. We've talked about a lot, from the details of smart contracts to the big picture stuff like transparency and accountability.
It's been a really cool journey, and I hope everyone listening now has a better idea of just how powerful this tech is.
So if we could leave our listeners with one last thought, one question to think about, what would it be?
How about this? If we could see where every single dollar the government spends goes in real time, I mean every dollar, how would that change how we feel about the government?
Wow, that's a good one. Would we trust them more? Would we be more involved? Would we be able to hold our leaders accountable in ways we can't even imagine right now?
Those are the questions we need to be asking. The possibilities are huge.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.